Good morning, metalheads of the internet, and welcome to a brand new, very special episode of the Metal Meltdown. We have arrived at the end of 2021, and therefore, we have arrived at the final video that I will record and release in 2021. And what a spectacular fucking year it has been, truly. We have quadrupled in size, we've done massive live streams, we've done very special exclusive interviews with members of Halloween, Lorna Shore, Cannibal Corpse, and I couldn't have accomplished any of this had it not been for your continuous support and patronage. So, a round of applause for everyone who likes and comments on a video, for everyone who subscribes to the Metal Meltdown, for everyone who tunes in on a regular basis. Even if you fucking dislike every single video and tune in every single day, thank you, because contrary to popular belief, dislikes count as views, so please stay fucking mad. Big things are on the way for 2022, so big that I don't even feel fully comfortable talking about them right here, right now, but that's okay, because right here, right now, we've got something else to talk about. Upcoming albums for 2022. There's gonna be a ton of them, that much is certain, but here are 10 specific albums that we know for sure are going to be coming out in 2022 that I am looking forward to more than anything else. The first of these albums is Epigon, the fourth studio album from American progressive metal band Wilderun. They turned a lot of heads with their previous studio album, The Veil of Imagination. It was almost immediately hailed as a modern prog metal masterpiece and eventual classic. I didn't review it when it initially came out, but I did finally get the chance to review it when Century Media Records re-released it about a year and a half ago, and I thoroughly fucking enjoyed it. Their particular take on progressive metal is so inventive and lush and heartfelt and theatrical and bombastic. I am super excited to see how they have now expanded upon that sound now that they have the financial backing of Century Media Records. I've heard little bits and pieces of the album here and there thanks to a promo copy sent by the aforementioned Century Media Records, but I've yet to hear the full fucking thing. I'm gonna wait just a little bit more to do so, but just based on the little bits and pieces I have heard, 2022 is off to an amazing start. Let's just put it that way. And I do mean start in a very literal sense, as the album will be dropping only a week from now on January 7th via the aforementioned Century Media Records. It's one of the first major releases of the year, one of the first albums that I imagine a lot of us will be talking about in any capacity, and I cannot wait to do exactly that. Next up on my list is Erabos, the third studio album from English death metal quartet Venom Prison. I have been gushing about this band pretty much ever since they were conceived. Their sophomore studio album, Samsara, is, in my opinion, a modern death metal masterpiece. I was a big fan of the compilation record they dropped in 2020 as well. They've done some pretty high-profile tours. Larissa Stupar is one of my favorite modern metal singers, and just based on what little bits and pieces I've heard from Erabos, I've no reason to believe that it will not be an absolutely massive record for the band. The few promo singles we've heard so far are nothing short of incredible, stark, vicious, brutal, bloodthirsty, absolutely mesmerizing displays of intelligent and provocative death metal with some very complex lyrical themes, some more interesting, detailed production, some experimental hooks and melodies. Definitely very pumped to see what the entire album is going to be like. Honestly, if it's anything, even half as good as the singles we've heard so far, we could already have an Album of the Year contender, but it's obviously too soon, very much too soon to say for sure, so we'll just have to wait and see. Anyone looking forward to hearing some nasty, politically charged modern death metal should definitely keep an eye out for Erabos when it drops February 4th via Century Media Records. Next up, we have Resentment is Always Seismic, a final throw of throws from English grindcore and extreme metal veterans, pioneers, champions, Napalm fucking Death. Y'all should already know, I love Napalm Death. They're one of my all-time favorite bands, so of course I would be excited for literally anything that they would release. These guys could fucking drop the most fucking cringeworthy nonsense on the earth, and I would still approach it with genuine enthusiasm and interest. In this particular instance, we have a mini-album slash EP slash compilation, which brings together a slew of previously unreleased material from the band's last studio album, Throes of Joy in the Jaws of Defeatism. So yes, this is technically a collection of Napalm Death's leftovers, but fuck it. Even Napalm Death's leftovers, I imagine, are extremely fucking spicy, flavorful, chock full of nutrients necessary for growing young men like myself. What more do I need to say, folks? It's Napalm fucking Death. This will be dropping February 11th, once again via Century Media Records, who are going to be super busy these first couple of months, it seems. Good for them. Fucking good for them. Next on my list is Synchro Anarchy, a brand new studio album from Canadian avant-garde, prog metal, thrash metal underdogs Voivod, another one of my all-time favorite bands, responsible for some of my all-time favorite records. Killing Technology in particular is one of my top 10 all-time favorite albums, as some of you may already know. They are, in my opinion, one of the few older thrash and heavy metal bands left over from the 1980s that is still consistently releasing genuinely really exciting and challenging music. Their previous studio album, The Wake, for instance, was a mind-melting concoction of complex, noisy, avant-garde, progressive thrash metal with insane cluttered production, weird vocal lines, psychedelic textures and soundscapes. It was an absolute nonsensical record from start to finish, and I mean that in the best way possible. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It ended up winning them the Juno Award for Best Metal Album in 2018. They did an EP a year and a half ago, which saw them working alongside a Montreal jazz band, and that alone has me really excited for this new studio album. I'm curious to see if any of those jazz influences have leaked their way over onto this. Even if they haven't, even if this is literally just a repeat of everything we heard on The Wake, then I'm probably still gonna love it, because there's nobody making music this weird and this satisfying as fucking Voivod right now. Much like the Napalm Death record, this will be dropping February 11th via Century Media Records. What a busy, fun weekend that's going to be for me. I am so fucking excited. I get to talk about two of my all-time favorite bands, like, non-stop over the course of a weekend. That's gonna be fucking fun as shit. Next up on my list is a self-titled album from Zeal and Ardor. This will be their third studio album overall, and will look to be quite possibly their most ambitious and provocative record to date. Which is saying a lot, because in a relatively small amount of time, these guys have done a lot of really weird fucking shit. Their first two studio albums saw them combining Negro spirituals and Southern gospel and classic blues with black metal and avant-garde and alternative metal. The Wake of the Nation EP saw them scaling back on some of those influences musically, but still pumping out some really heavy fucking tunes, fueled and motivated and inspired by the never-ending series of economic, social, and political crises that we've been living in as of late. Based on what we've heard so far, it's fair to say that this album will see Zeal and Ardor continuing to prioritize the more melodic and soulful influences and aspects of their sound, which I'm not bothered by, because quite frankly, that is consistently the most cathartic and exciting part of their sound. Even so, don't fret. If you really just want some nasty heavy tunes, you're probably still going to get that. There's a promo single, Go to Damarong, for instance, which is unironically one of the heaviest things I think I've heard from Zeal and Ardor ever. The point is, Zeal and Ardor have a new album on the way, and while it is going to be pretty different, it's still going to be pretty fucking wild. That drops again February 11th via MKVA. Next up, we have something that could be semi-controversial, but fuck it, I want to talk about it nonetheless because I'm looking forward to it. Time Wave Zero, a brand new ambient album from Blood Incantation. Many of you will remember that Blood Incantation a few years ago dropped Hidden History of the Human Race, an album which spawned many memes, many, many, many memes, but more importantly stood as being one of the strongest death metal records in recent memory, thanks to its sci-fi concept, its crushing, unpredictable music, and its overall just soul-crushing atmosphere. I will concede that on some level I do empathize with people who maybe are a little bit turned off by the concept of Blood Incantation doing a full-blown ambient prog album, but I don't know, there's something about that idea that is just so incredibly intriguing to me. Do I think it would have been wise of Blood Incantation to also announce that they'll be releasing like maybe just a little death metal EP alongside this? Sure. And who knows? Maybe they'll take inspiration from a band like Portal or Old Man Gloom and just drop another album alongside Time Wave Zero. Who knows? It's possible. I just named 2 bands that have done exactly that within the past 2 years. But if that doesn't happen, then honestly, that's fine too. I'm still legitimately pretty interested to see how this thing turns out, and if you are as well, then keep an eye out for it when it drops February 25th via Century Media Records. We may as well just call this Century Media's top 10 records of 2022 at this fucking point. They are all over this fucking thing. I promise you I did not do that on purpose. Next album I'm pumped for is Closure Continuation from Porcupine Tree. This is their 11th studio album overall, and their first album following 2009's The Incident. I really don't think I need to explain why this particular album from this particular band is on this list. I mean, it's fucking Porcupine Tree, one of the best prog rock bands of the 2010s, which, by the way, gifted upon us one of the best prog rock producers, songwriters, singers, performers of all time. Even when Porcupine Tree dissolved, he continued to release fantastic solo material, such as The Raven That Refused to Sing, and more recently, Future Bites, a Grammy-nominated record which saw him indulging in like 70s pop and rock music with like art rock and funk influences. It was weird, it was crazy, I thoroughly enjoyed it. The band has already dropped a promo single for the album Haradan back in November. It was pretty fucking fantastic if you ask me. I've no clue what the full album is going to be like, and we won't know for a while, seeing as how it's not scheduled to come out until like June. But again, it's Steven Wilson, it's Porcupine Tree, pretty self-explanatory. This comes out more specifically June 24th via Music for Nations. If you care even at least a little bit about prog rock and prog metal, you've no reason not to listen to this when it comes out. Next up, we have The Sick, the Dead, and the Dying from American thrash metal legends Megadeth. This will be their 16th studio album overall, and their first following the critical and commercial hit that was 2016's Dystopia. And unlike pretty much every other album we've talked about so far, we don't really know a lot about this album. We know it was supposed to come out in 2021. We know that it's probably going to feature a brand new bass player, considering, you know, David Ellefson turned out to be kind of a creepy little fucking pervo. And we also know that it's called The Sick, the Dead, and the Dying, and that's kind of about it. Now, Dave Mustaine did very recently share a 15-second snippet taken from a song called Life After Hell via Cameo, but it's hard to really extract much information from what is essentially 15 seconds of a straightforward thrash metal lead guitar riff, you know? It's hard for me to sit here and be like, whoa, after listening to 15 seconds of one song, I'm super pumped to listen to an entire album. Especially when, as some of you may already know, I am not really a fan of anything Megadeth have put out in the last decade. I didn't like 13, I really didn't like Super Collider, and honestly I'm not a huge fan of Dystopia either. I just thought it was a kind of lazy, one-dimensional kind of record with really, really, really bad production. I mean, the compression alone just made that thing unfucking listenable. So in this particular instance, honestly, I'm mostly anticipating this just because I'm curious to see just how bad this shitstorm will be. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm going to try to be as positive and as enthusiastic as possible, but we'll see. It's that simple. No release date is really set for this thing, but from what I understand, Dave Mustaine hopes to release this at some point in spring or summer 2002, which we'll see. It's been delayed a few times, so we'll see if he even sticks to that. And finally, we're going to finish with 2 albums that we have 0 information about. We don't know what they're called, we haven't heard any music from them, we haven't seen any artwork. All we know is that these albums exist and they will be released in 2022. And considering I have personally interviewed members of both of the bands we're talking about, I can't help but trust them and take them at their word. The first of these records is a brand new studio album from Imperial Triumphant, the follow-up to 2020's masterpiece of a record, Alphaville, one of the few albums I've given a 5 out of 5 on the Metal Meltdown. Everything this band has done in the past few years is nothing short of fucking incredible. Without question, one of the most unique and ambitious metal bands out there, with a one-of-a-kind sound, a one-of-a-kind look, one-of-a-kind everything, really. I mean, they're not the first band to try to blend, like, jazz and extreme metal, but they're definitely one of the most provocative and intelligent and exciting. And I've no reason to believe right now that their next studio album, even despite having heard nothing from it, will not be exactly like or perhaps even better than records like Vile Luxury and Alphaville, the latter of which I very proudly called one of the best albums of 2020. So yeah, I'm fucking pumped, to put it real fucking bluntly. And on top of that, we also have a brand new studio album, very likely, hopefully, probably on the way from Lorna Shore. And this is especially big news because they only released an EP like a couple of months ago, and I Return to Nothingness is still pretty fresh in all of our minds right now. But it seems as though they took advantage of their quarantine time and they got to work immediately on a brand new studio album, and apparently, at least according to the band's social media, they completed work on it very fucking recently and plan to release it at some point in 2022. In my opinion, And I Return to Nothingness, despite being an EP, is the best thing Lorna Shore has ever made. It is absolutely what they needed to put out following the controversy of their previous studio album and their previous singer, CJ McCreary. The production on that thing is absolutely fucking bonkers. Their new singer, Will Ramos, is an absolute fucking madman. I had the pleasure of talking to their drummer, Austin Archie, just a couple of months ago, and we talked a little bit about what a new Lorna Shore album might sound like, but even despite that, I really don't know exactly what this new album will have in store, and that actually has me all the more excited. The way I see it right now, if they were willing to go that hard for just 3 songs on an EP, imagine how hard they're going to go on a full-blown studio album. We may very likely be on the cusp of quite possibly one of the best deathcore records ever, if it's even half as good as that fucking EP. Much like the aforementioned Imperial Triumphant record, we don't really have any concrete information on this. All we know is that it exists and it will very likely be released in 2022. And that does it for me, honestly. Those are my top 10 most anticipated albums of 2022. Now it's your turn to tell me, what albums are you excited for in 2022? What albums will you be on the lookout for? What bands do you hope will finally release some new fucking material? Let me know in the comments below. Press this button right here so you can subscribe and get updates to the Metal Meltdown fucking immediately. Happy New Year, and as always, you have yourself a fantastic fucking day.